Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Takhfeem and Tarqeeque. Lesson number 16. The meaning of Takhfeem is pronounce the letter in a thick tone, and Tarqeeque is pronounce the letter in a thin tone. Alif, Lam, and Ra are sometimes pronounced in a thick tone and sometimes in a thin tone. If before Alif thick letter, then we will pronounce Alif thick tone. Like here, Qaf is a Mustalia letter. Before Alif, thick letter. So Alif is thick as well. Qala. And if there is a thin letter before Alif, this is a Kaf before Alif, then it will be Alif thin. Kana, Malan, thin tone. Before Alif, Mim is a thin tone letter. Talibu, before Alif, thick tone letter, so we will read Alif thick as well. Talibu. Tabu, thin tone. Khalidan, thick tone. Abidun, before Alif, Ain, thin tone. Ghasiqin, before Alif, thick letter, so Alif is thick as well. Tu'amin, before Alif, Ain, thin tone, so Alif is thin as well. And when there is Allah's name, and before Allah's name, if Zabar or Pesh comes, before Allah's name, if Zabar or Pesh comes on top of this Lam, because Allah, in Allah's name there are two Lams. This is first Lam and this is other one. So this is Tashdid on top of second Lam and Khada Zabar. So before that Lam, before this Lam, if Zabar or Pesh comes, then it will be, this Lam will be thick tone. We will read Allahu. It's not Allahu. Allahu. Wallahu. Fallahu. Rasulullahi. Radiyallahu. So before Allah's name, Zabar or Pesh comes, then it will be, this Lam will be in a thick tone voice. This is Allah's name as well, because there are two Lams in one, two Lams. Here this is not Allah's name, because this is one Lam only. This is Allah's name, two Lam, and this is not Allah's name. So this is Allah's name, so we will read it thick tone, because before this Lam there is a Pesh. Qalullahumma. So we will read Lam thick tone in Allah's name. If before Allah's name Zabar or Pesh comes, then we will pronounce this Lam thick tone. If there is a Zair before the name of Allah, before this Lam, Mushaddad Lam and Khada Zabar on top of it, before this Lam Zair comes, we will pronounce this Lam in Allah's name thin tone. Lillahi, Billahi, Bismillahi. And this is Allah's name as well. Qulillahumma ma wallahum. And any other letter except Allah's name, any other Lam, sorry, not letter, any other Lam, like Illa, this is normal Lam, Alladina, Illa Alladina together padhenge to this Lam, Alladina, Ala, Salatan, Rajulun, Alam. So these are not Allah's name, so we will pronounce them always thin tone. Illalladhina, innalladhina, ala salatan. And Ra's rule, if Ra has a Zabar on it, we will pronounce Ra thick tone. If Ra has a Zabar, so this is a thick letter before Alif, we will pronounce Alif thick tone. Swirato, Sirajan. So if Ra has a Zabar or Pesh on it, we will pronounce Ra thick tone. If Ra has two zabar or two pesh on it, we will pronounce ra thick tone. If ra has a khada zabar or ulta pesh on top of it, we will pronounce ra thick tone. And if ra is sakin, then we will check which letter is which harakat is before ra sakin. So before ra sakin, if zabar pesh do pesh khada zabar or ulta pesh comes, then we will pronounce ra sakin thick as well. So before ra sakin zabar, before ra sakin zabar, before ra sakin pesh, before ra sakin pesh. So before ra sakin zabar or pesh, two zabar or two pesh, khada zabar or ulta pesh comes, then we will pronounce ra sakin thick tone. Before ra sakin, if temporary zair, meaning if alif has a zair underneath before ra sakin, this zair is temporary. So before ra sakin, if alif has a zair underneath, then we will pronounce this ra sakin thick tone. Irji', irji'i, irka'u. And if before ra sakin zair, asli zair, this is temporary zair. This is not original zair, because alif, if alif has a zair, zabar or pesh or anything on top of it or underneath, then we'll pronounce it as hamza. But if any other letter has a zair or zabar or pesh anything, we will pronounce that letter like ba zair b, ta zair ti, sa zair si. They doesn't change, but alif will be changed into hamza. So this is temporary, this is original zair. Before ra sakin, original zair in the different word. Before ra sakin, zair in different word, in preceding word. Then we'll pronounce this ra thick tone. Rabbir ham huma, because there are two words, Rab and this one. So before ra sakin zair in other word, this ra will be thick tone. Before ra sakin zair in different word. And after ra sakin, if mustalia letter comes, after ra sakin, then we don't need to check which letter before it, which harakat before ra sakin. We only check mustalia letters. So after mustalia letter, if mustalia letter comes after ra sakin, if mustalia letter comes, then we will pronounce ra thick tone. Firqin, firqatin, mirswadin, qirtasin. And if there is a zair underneath ra and do zair, then pronounce ra thin tone. And before ra sakin, if zair asli in the same word, this is before ra sakin zair asli in the different word, before ra sakin zair in other word. Here ra sakin zair before ra sakin zair in the same word. So this is thin tone. We will pronounce this ra thin tone. Fa'anzir, this ra will be thin tone. Khairun, we will pronounce khairun, ra thick tone, but in waqf we will pronounce ra thin tone, because before ra sakin, if ya sakin comes, then we will pronounce ra sakin thin tone. Khairun, waqf khair, nadirun, waqf nadir. So before ra sakin, if ya sakin comes, then it will be, this ra sakin will be thin tone. So alif, lam and ra will pronounce sometime thick tone and sometime thin tone. Alif's rule is very easy. Before alif, if thick letter, alif will be thick. Before alif, thin letter, alif will be thin. And Allah's name, before Allah's name, if zabar or pesh come, then we will pronounce Allah's name's lam thick tone. And before Allah's name, if zair comes, this lam will be thin tone. And any other lam